All right, welcome back. This is our GMC Sierra tweet of the night from Pro Football Focus, something about the AFC North edge defenders. And you see how it is, and a little bit of controversy this week where Myles Garrett said that TJ Watt owes him an apology for storming out last year when TJ Watt thought at the Vegas reception, the show that announced all the winners, that he should have won the Defensive Player of the Year. I happen to agree with that. So I don't know. It seems petty on both sides to me, Chris. I don't know how you view that.
TJ Watt only owed an apology there to Cam Hayward because Cam was winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, and that was the worst kept secret in the entire NFL universe, and I think he should have been there to support his teammate. No, he does not owe Myles Garrett an apology. What are we doing here? I mean, look at that graphic. They're separated by 1/10 of a point on a subjective metric on a website that most of us like to deride when it doesn't match up with our opinions on a player. They actually have TJ Watt as the higher graded overall defender, which makes sense because let's just assume for a second these two are a wash as pass rushers, just a total, canceling out. Garrett really does not do anything else. He occasionally makes crazy plays on special teams. Watt actually does defend the pass. He does get his hands in passing lanes. We remember that huge interception he had dropping into coverage against the Rams last year. I have come around to this. I thought Garrett was getting unfairly maligned by some people. I thought he was incredibly dominant for enormous stretches last year, but the more complete player, no doubt, the better player, it's pretty obvious now, is TJ Watt.
In every category that you could throw up for defensive lineman, there's no question about it. He is superior. That doesn't mean Myles Garrett isn't capable of taking over a game, and tomorrow the Steelers got to make sure that he doesn't. Let's get to the lines here, and then I'll get some hockey talk in. But first, we want to go to David in Findlayville, who's talking on line 3. What's up, Dave?
Hi, Bob. Thanks for taking my call. How you doing tonight?
Okay, thank you.
Good. I got a question for yourself and Chris. What do you think about Mike Tomlin being Coach of the Year? I'll hang up and listen to you both.
Well, he's never won it, and quite frankly, he should be very much in the conversation. He and Dan Quinn, I don't see, anyone else edging those two. I think those are the two choices at this point, Chris.
I think you might see if Arizona keeps this up, right? Like, don't you think that there's a chance out there? We all remember, by the way, how absurd that career opening press conference was. But Arizona, if they have a strong finish and end up with like 11 wins out in the NFC West, the division that nobody seems to want to win, I think that I'm completely blanking on the guy's name, by the way, which is why I'm avoiding saying it.
It's me too. What is it, Gannon or?
Jonathan Gannon. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that,
because
but I was sitting there. I'm just gonna.
And you just don't.
I'm gonna admit this. No, I'm gonna admit this though. Like, I just completely blanked on his name. Oh yeah, he's doing an unbelievable job out there. I don't think though that he's gonna get serious consideration because Kyler Murray, if anything, is gonna sneak into the fringes of the MVP conversation. You think of other people who are doing like an objectively good job. Like, I hate to say this because I have ripped the guy up and down. Doesn't Sean Payton deserve a nod for the fact that the Broncos would be in a playoff spot right now if the season ended?
Yeah.
He's turned Bo Nix into what looks like a pretty good rookie quarterback. Jim Harbaugh's doing a whale of a job again. I know you say Dan Quinn, and the Commanders should still make the playoffs because the NFC is pretty weak, but I guess you're right overall here. I mean, the thesis statement is not incorrect. This is a year where the field seems clear for Tomlin. He's doing it with two quarterbacks off the discard pile. And I certainly think that the rest of the NFL media, if he manages to get this team to like 12 or 13 wins, would have a hard time avoiding giving him the award.
John in Carnegie is next up. Hey, John, what's going on?
Thanks, Bob and Chris, for taking my call. Yeah, Chris, I kind of agree with you about the 10-point spread for tomorrow. I wanted to get you guys' take on the passing game with the running backs. Looking at that Baltimore game, they really were effective, getting 10 yards a pop, passing with the running backs, and maybe in the red zone using that big tight end. I think it's Washington.
Yeah. Well, they're checking down a lot. I mean, Russell Wilson, which is not a bad thing, especially when you have guys like Jaylen Warren who can turn 3 yards into 10, or for that matter, even Harris. I don't mind those. I don't want to see a whole bunch of them. You know, they're there for a reason. But I'd rather see. I keep talking about middle of the field. Maybe I'm obsessed with this now because I see other teams doing a lot of stuff in the middle of the field, and I see it from time to time with the Steelers. But I think they're leaving open a lot, and I also think it helps defenses know that they're trending toward the sidelines, and maybe that's why Baltimore, which had been pretty bad, I thought, for most of the season, looked pretty good last week.
Russ has to find middle of the field throwing lanes, like, period. I mean, the guy's not even 5'10". So it's hard for him flat out to see. In fact, guys that were really short quarterbacks, I think only Drew Brees truly worked the middle of the field at an elite level. I don't really know how he did it. But that's where Arthur Smith's got almost scheme-up stuff that's easy for Russell Wilson to see in the middle of the field because you do have to use it. I will say, though, throwing to the backs, I mean, I think on the broadcast, they talked about how in the second half one of the adjustments was that they just wanted Russell Wilson to take completions that were there. He did, and that's why he threw for more yardage that half. I think it was like 130 yards or something to that effect. It was because he took what was there and allowed like Jalen Warren, allowed Najee Harris, allowed whoever it was to just get the yards that were being given to them. That is something that for this offense, which I think can be explosive but is still not on the level of the league's elite groups on that side of the ball, is still something they need to be cognizant of doing and do whenever they are given the opportunity.
We're going out to Franklin right now. We got Jerry joining us. Hello, Jerry. What's up?
Hey, Bob and Chris. Hey, you guys should come up to Venango County sometime. We'll treat you right.
Yeah, I like Venango County. I've been there recently.
I've played golf out in Venango County. Yeah. Bob, you ever played Venango Valley out there?
Venango Trails? That was a course. I don't know if that still exists.
That was the $20 Monday special, Bob. We used to go up, my buddies and I, when one of us was 16 and he could drive. We'd go up there. We'd put on our collared shirts. We'd play a little golf. When we were 16, we were kings of the world. They even let us drive carts.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Hey, thank you. Did you guys notice on the last play that Baltimore had the ball when they tried the two-point conversion? Joey Porter Jr. made a great play on that, but Nate Herbig blew that play up and caused Jackson to run parallel with the line of scrimmage that set it up so Porter Jr. could have the nice play. And I just noticed that, and I didn't hear anybody talking about it too much. And second thing is, just pray a blessing on both of you. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Herbig blew that play up.
They both,
Herbig's the.
Yeah, but I also think Harbaugh changed the play, and I think there was a bunch of confusion on their side of it. It did not look like that was some sort of systematic play that they had, worked on week after week just in case of these situations. I don't know.
I think Tomlin got in his head a little bit, but I mean, if you look at the way that play seemed to be designed, it was to show that little push pass right there to the guy going on jet motion. And then my sense of how that play was supposed to work was this. They were going to have Jackson running it that way, and they were going to have guys pulling, and they were going to get a bit of a convoy out in front of him. And even if the Steelers might have had one extra man there, I think there's enough of a wash that Jackson gets through. Herbig blew it up so fast that they couldn't get that player pulling because they had to stop him from just getting to Jackson right then and there. And so that made the numbers from my vantage point work out way better for the Steelers, and I think that's why it was so easy for them to stop. So I do agree with Jerry calling in there. I think Nick Herbig made the play that actually won the game, even though Porter had it strung out perfectly and got in there with a great tackle.
Jack in Delmont, you're next up. Go ahead, Jack.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for taking my call. If the Steelers expect to beat Cleveland on Thursday night, first of all, they've got to score touchdowns. Second of all, when they get down around the 20-yard line, they've got to bring Justin Fields in. He's a threat to run.
Yeah, that's been a talking point.
He's a good passer.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's a better passer than runner in the red zone. I haven't seen that necessarily. What I have seen is the talent on display. I'm glad they used him last week, Chris. I would expect more of that in some capacity, whether it's early in games, middle, or late of games. But I think that's a weapon that you should use. He's there. Why not?
Definitely in the red zone, especially inside the 10, I think when they truly do want to run the ball when the field gets condensed. I still think Wilson should be able to operate better in the high red zone, like near the 20, because there's still a lot of field to work with there. I think this game, though, not just in the red zone, presents an opportunity to maybe use Fields more productively, just because if the weather gets bad, and I know that ball security can be an issue with him, I would hope he'd have that buttoned up, but if you know you're going to run the ball a lot and they know you're going to run the ball a lot, don't you owe it to yourself? I'm not saying like every series or anything, but maybe to try to get 8 to 10 snaps in there with Justin Fields, like a series here or there. He could even run 2 or 3 plays and then come out and show them a different look. But given the conditions, what they're supposed to be tomorrow, it feels like a game where you could utilize him more frequently than you otherwise would.
I would agree with that. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Penguins and what happened last night, and a coach fired that you wouldn't necessarily expect. That's coming up next right here on KDKA Plus at 93.7 The Fan. In the meantime, Chris, let me ask you about the Penguins last night. They lost another game in which they blew a multiple goal lead in the last period. It went to overtime, and then a terrible play by Tristan Jarry, I thought, allowed Braden Point to score the game winner. Mike Sullivan was clearly upset. Talk about lack of discipline, taking pride in details, all this sort of thing. He's still the head coach. Jim Montgomery out of Boston is fired after a 120 win, 41 loss, 23 record. Best winning percentage of all coaches right now over the last couple of years in the NHL regular season. And this comes after they fired Bruce Cassidy for the same reason. He goes to Vegas and wins the Stanley Cup. What did you think of that move?
I don't mind teams in the NHL where coaches get fired all the time, especially one largely as successful as the Bruins, deciding it was time. And it just underscores that the Penguins, who maybe more famously than any other team, have fired coaches to great effect within individual seasons. I don't think I need to rehash, what has happened here with Bilesma, then with Mike Johnston, and what happened in those 2 seasons.
4 of the 5 Stanley Cups were guys on their first year after changes.
Right, and the last, 2 of the last 3 were guys who got the job mid-season. It's baffling to me that they have decided to just throw their lot in with Mike Sullivan, because any other coach, you'd say the team has at bare minimum tuned him out, even if he's saying the right things. If they're blowing this many multi-goal leads this early in the season, how many is it? 8 games they've had a multi-goal lead and squandered it? 8 games out of 21. That is over a third.
They got the Jets coming in Friday too. It ain't gonna get easier. Good night.